Throughout history, literature is filled with stories of epic journeys, like the journey of the Magi, which is portrayed in the scriptures this weekend. We have the Odyssey, the Aeneid, the Greek tragedies, Beowulf, the Chronicles of Narnia. All these are journeys in which there's a conflict, and the conflict presses the hero onto an urgent path. And the hero then must either return to the place he left, as did Odysseus, or reestablish, after a decisive battle, a new home in a new age, like Aeneas. If you remember The Lord of the Rings, Tolkien sees the heart of the tale as the journey of the ring-bearers. And the story itself is nothing short of an epic journey narrative in which a single path must be taken at great personal cost for the sake of a greater good. The completion of the journey brings a character or characters to a change of heart and a deeper understanding of God's salvific activity in the world. Tolkien talks of the final phase of the journey as many partings. And he says, nothing remains as it was. In the story we heard in the scriptures tonight, that's the journey of the Magi. Nothing remains as it was. They were on a long journey. It basically brought them disappointment. They had to keep going and be willing to change direction. They discovered that their promised Messiah was not who they expected him to be. He was born in a stable. Nothing remained as it was. All was changed for them. They were caught off guard by what challenged them on the journey, and yet they continued on. That's the challenge that comes to us from this journey of the Magi. Nothing remains as it was. Life always challenges us like all seekers, and we are challenged not to give up. Not to give up through all the obstacles that we have to involve ourselves in. And if we don't give up, if we continue to seek, we will eventually find the Lord. And if we stay faithful, we will, at the completion of our journey, also have that change of heart and also have that deeper understanding of God's salvific activity in our world. Laura Hillenbrand, if you remember who Laura is, she's an author, and she wrote that great novel that was turned into the movie Seabiscuit. She herself has been on her own epic journey. For 23 years, she's been struggling with debilitating chronic fatigue syndrome, and she remains largely confined to her home. When she was questioned about the irony of writing about physical paragons while being so incapacitated herself, she wrote, "I'm looking for a way out of here. I can't have it physically, so I'm going to have it intellectually. It was a beautiful thing to ride Seabiscuit in my imagination." She just published a new work entitled Unbroken. It's on the New York Times bestseller list. It's a nonfiction book about Louis Zamperini. Louis Zamperini was a 1930s track star who competed in the 1936 Berlin Olympics. He shook the hand of Adolf Hitler. As he prepared for the 1940 Olympics, World War II was beginning, and he joined the Army Air Corps, becoming a bombardier. And on one May afternoon in 1943, his plane crashed somewhere over the Pacific. He and two others drifted for weeks, experiencing starvation, desperate thirst, shark attacks, typhoons, and raids from Japanese bombers. When they did discover land, they were picked up by the Japanese, and then his journey through the Japanese prisoner of war camps began. It's an epic journey of horrendous abuse and amazing will to survive. I have to warn you that you cannot be faint of heart to read this book. But if you can survive it, if you can survive the horrific descriptions of torture, you discover a hero through it all, who never gave up and was unbroken. Now, Laura doesn't end her nonfiction work when the war ends, but she continues to share Louis's journey through his post-traumatic stress disorder, his inability to be comforted by any religion, his horrendous anger at humanity and at God, and then his epiphany. He had a great epiphany. I don't want to spoil the story for you in case you hope to read it, but Louis continued to seek, and he never gave up, and he found his God. But just like the Magi, nothing remained as it was. I recommend this epic journey if you have the stomach for the evil that you will experience, because it is a true story. But isn't this the challenge of our lives? To make it through unbroken. You know, we might be beaten up, we might get discouraged, we might experience times of rage and doubt at God and humanity. But in the midst of it all, if we keep seeking, the grace is there that we will also come to the peace that Louis Zamperini experiences at the age of 90 as he continues to live now in California. You see, each one of us is on an epic journey. Each one of us is a seeker. Each one of us continues to ask what the meaning of life is all about. Who is this God in my life? How do I experience this God and continue to believe even when life hits me with the most difficult challenges? Laura Hillenbrand won a National Magazine Award for an article she wrote entitled "A Sudden Illness." She wrote it in 2003 for the New Yorker magazine, and she describes in the article her battle with chronic fatigue syndrome. She has transmuted her own life struggle into two wonderful and irresistible stories about athletes, one a horse and one a man, gifted with preternatural speed, who overcame severe handicaps to achieve victory. All these heroes of these epic journeys, they discover that life and love are stronger than all the sin and the evil and the death in our world. And when they discover this, they discover God, because God is life and love. So as we continue, each one of us, on our epic journey, we are challenged to remember that it's never going to happen just the way we want it to, that nothing ever remains as it was. But if we don't give up, we will also have that change of heart in the midst of whatever troubles we might be experiencing or have experienced. We will gain a different perspective on God's working in our world. And we will also realize that the grace is available to come through it unbroken and to finally find the God we seek.